In this lesson, we're going to be talking about email. Now, email is something that's been around actually since the early 1970s, back when it was the ARPANET, and the very first instance of an email being sent was in the very early 1970s on the ARPANET, and that was actually when the @ symbol being used for email messages originated as well. So email's been around for a long time. And as a result of that, we have a lot of different ways of communicating via email, more so now, I think, than ever before, because we've got this ability to do webmail, for example, like Gmail from Google is often done through a web interface. And the type of email that we're going to be talking about specifically here is that where you've got an email client, like, for example, Windows Live Mail, and I could launch Windows Live Mail right here, and you'll see there's a client that actually starts up, and I've got some messages in my Google mailbox. So everything is kind of stored here locally. Now, different clients, of course, use different storage abilities. So you might get, like, Outlook, for example, stores all of their messages and anything related to Outlook in a database-like format, or specifically it actually is a Microsoft database that's created specifically for Outlook information. So contacts and messages and notes and all of that stuff gets stored in a database. So you would have to have specific tools to be able to access that. So, for example, you might want to import the messages into a running Outlook, or find some other utility that's going to be able to parse those Outlook messages. But let's take a look specifically at Windows Live Mail, because that's kind of a common mail client because it's so readily available, and it's similar to the old Windows Mail that used to come by default on Windows system and now is part of Microsoft's Live Essentials package that comes with some other stuff as well. But because it's kind of ubiquitous, we're going to take a look here at where the information for Windows Live Mail is stored. So I'm actually going to go into app data here, and then local and Microsoft, and I should have Windows Live Mail there. Now I can go into Windows Live Mail, and if I do a directory, you can see that there are different settings here. So I've got a directory called Gmail, and I'm going to go into that directory, and there's my inbox. And now I've got a couple of email messages here. So let's just see if we can get anything useful out of these messages. And it actually tells me access is denied. And let's just, for fun, try the other one. This one I actually can open up, and you can see that it's just the plain text from the messages that are stored in my inbox. So you can actually just open up these messages just by using simple command line parameters, and you don't necessarily get into the same sort of trouble as you would from trying to import them into another program. And by trouble, I mean the possibility that something may be altered, that the information may be altered in some way because it's been brought into another program, and that other program is going to flag maybe some date information or some storage location information. So there's a possibility that you could actually run the risk of altering the information that you're finding, or the message that you're finding. You could end up altering it in a particular way, and that may corrupt the evidence such that it may not be as readily admissible as something that you could easily demonstrate had not actually been altered. So these .eml messages, or EML files here, you could do things like take a hash of that and then be able to present it later and say, see, here's the actual raw message, and it hasn't actually been altered in any way. Now, I can also go into deleted items, and you can see that the way that everything is structured here within Windows Live Mail and the way it stores is that for every folder, you've actually got a folder on the file system, and every message appears to have just a message that's stored in the mail format here, the .eml file extension. So it looks like with Windows Live Mail, you can pretty easily dig through the information that's stored on the system or on your local system and be able to look through all of the messages just from, simple command line tools. And it's pretty clear what's going on. There's actually also some log files here. And let's just take a look at what maybe we've got going on with Windows Live Mail.log. So you can see there's some, looks like error messages relating to contacts that are stored here, and there's some other log messages that probably have to do with changes that were made to the messages that were coming in. You can see that those are about 2 meg a piece, so we could actually just do a type edb.log, and we can't actually open it because it's in use, so I could actually close this down and then just see whether we can take a look at it. And it looks like we can't take a look at that particular log message, but you've got those log files there, and they may have some information regarding transactions that took place within this mail client, and you may be able to find out some information about messages that were sent or received, and that may be useful to an investigation that you are actively pursuing. But like I said, there's a lot of different mail clients. We took a look at one right here, Windows Live Mail, just to give you an example of how you might go about looking for mail messages and email information. But of course, every client has its own way of storing things. And like I said, Outlook has a database, and you would need to have utilities that were capable of looking at that database without actually altering it in any particular way. And, there's other clients like Mozilla Thunderbird, and it stores its information in a different format altogether, which is probably closer to Windows Live Mail in terms of being able to just look at it raw within the context of the file system without having to have additional tools to look at it. So that's just different ways of looking at email messages or looking for email messages as part of your investigation.